Artificial intelligence is generating a surge of computing infrastructure demand like never before. This is EconWorks. In this episode, we talk about how data centers work, why AI-ready capacity has become a separate market, and why it's infrastructure constraints, not market power, that are driving today's shortages. We discuss the implications of these developments for competition policy, investment, and the future of AI.
Imagine taking like a standard, incredibly reliable family car engine.
Okay.
And you just rip it completely out of the chassis, right?
Yeah.
And you drop a heavy-duty commercial rocket booster into the engine bay.
Right. Just a massive upgrade.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't change the cooling system, and you don't upgrade the gas tank at all.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, that's the entire vehicle is going to overheat immediately.
Right. You'd burn through your fuel in like a matter of seconds. And that catastrophic mismatch is, it's exactly what the tech industry has just done to the global power grid.
Yeah. It is a profound physical collision. I mean, we are witnessing this infinite kind of ethereal digital revolution, right? The AI boom.
Yeah.
And it is slamming headfirst into very slow, very concrete realities of, copper wires, thermodynamics, and local zoning boards.
Yeah, local zoning boards. And that is really the core of today's custom deep dive for you. We're pulling entirely from a single, highly detailed source today. It's an EconWorks technical backgrounder, and it's called The Market for AI-Ready Data Center Capacity. And our mission today is to look past the software. Like, we want you to just forget about the clever algorithms, the chat interfaces, the massive language models, all of that.
Yeah, ignore the digital stuff for a minute.
Exactly. We are going to look at the actual physical buildings where AI lives, because we really need to figure out why the infrastructure supporting this technology is just completely maxed out, why the cost to run these systems is skyrocketing, and why the most obvious assumption you might make that, corporate monopolies are just artificially rigging the market is actually completely wrong.
Yeah, it's completely wrong. And to understand the market panic, right, and those crazy soaring prices, you first have to understand the underlying physics of how a data center has fundamentally changed.
Right.
Because this isn't just a real estate crisis about square footage. I mean, at its core, this is a thermodynamics crisis.
Okay, so let's track how we actually arrived at this crisis. Because, data centers obviously aren't a new invention.
No, not at all.
We've had massive rooms full of computers for decades now.
Right, and the EconWorks paper maps this out beautifully. They break it into these distinct historical eras.
Okay.
So you start with the mainframe era that's, spanning the 1950s to the 1970s.
So giant computers taking up whole floors.
Exactly. These were highly centralized, bespoke computing environments.
Yeah.
Very specialized facilities. But then, moving into the 1990s, the colocation era arrived.
Colocation, right?
Yeah, and this is where multi-tenant facilities allowed different, totally separate companies to simply share the same massive physical building. So they were, splitting the cost of power and cooling.
Makes sense, like an apartment building for servers.
Exactly. And then, from about 2006 to around 2018, we entered what they call the hyperscale era.
The cloud.
Right, driven by the massive explosion of cloud computing. We saw the construction of these massive, highly standardized, just incredibly efficient buildings designed to host millions of servers.
Right.
But the critical phase the paper identifies, it happened right at the tail end of that era, from roughly 2010 to 2018. The industry hit something called the efficiency plateau.
Wait, hold on. 2010 to 2018. That was when smartphones took over the world.
Yeah.
Every single app, every photo you took, every business, it all moved to the cloud during that time.
Yeah, it did.
So if computing demand went totally hyperbolic during those 8 years, how does energy efficiency just plateau? You'd expect the global power draw to spike violently.
Right, and that's the miracle of that specific era. Global demand for computing power did surge massively, but the actual energy required to power it all, it remained almost completely flat.
Oh.
Yeah. The industry basically figured out how to decouple compute from energy.
Okay, but how does that actually work mechanically? You can't just, get free computing power out of thin air.
No, you can't. It was driven heavily by something called virtualization.
Okay.
And that was alongside these incredible efficiency gains in the hardware itself. So before virtualization, you might have a single physical server dedicated to one specific task, like, say, running a company's email. Most of the time, that server is just sitting there idle, doing nothing, but it's still drawing power.
Oh, just wasting energy.
Exactly. But virtualization allowed engineers to run dozens of virtual servers, on one single piece of physical hardware.
Oh, so they're packing it all in.
Yeah. Suddenly, a server was running at near 100% utilization all the time.
Yeah.
We just got exponentially better at packing more performance into the exact same electrical footprint.
Okay, so we basically maximized the efficiency of the car engine. Like we squeezed every single drop of mileage out of it.
Exactly. But then 2020 happened.
Ah, the structural break.
Right. The paper identifies this as a massive structural break. The rise of AI, and specifically GPU-based workloads.
Graphics processing units.
Right, GPUs. They just shattered that 8-year plateau.
Yeah.
Because AI doesn't just run simple logic tasks. It performs millions of parallel mathematical calculations simultaneously.
Right.
So these new AI workloads increase power intensity by a factor of 10 to 100 times compared to traditional servers.
100.
Yeah. The historical decoupling of compute and energy completely died in 2020.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Can you put some numbers to that structural break for us? What does that jump actually look like?
Sure. So in 2020, global data center energy consumption sat at about 270 terawatt hours.
Okay.
And to give you a sense of scale, that's roughly the energy consumption of an entire medium-sized country.
Wow.
But by 2024, just 4 years later, it surged to 415 terawatt hours. And the projection for 2030 is an astonishing 945 terawatt hours.
What was the 1,000?
Yeah. We were talking about adding the energy footprint of an entire nation onto the power grid in just a few years.
Okay, so if I'm listening to this right now, an obvious, very practical question comes to mind.
Right.
There are already thousands of massive data centers all over the globe, right? We've all seen them. Those giant windowless warehouses sitting off the highway everywhere.
So if AI just requires new, powerful GPU servers, why can't we simply, rip out the old hardware, wheel in the new AI servers, and just use the existing buildings? Well, the answer lies in the hard limits of physical design, specifically a metric called rack density.
Rack density.
Yeah. A rack is essentially, it's a metal closet inside the data center where you stack the servers.
Like a server rack.
Right. And rack density is a measure of how much power in kilowatts a single one of those metal closets draws.
Okay.
So historically, your average data center rack drew about 8 kilowatts of power.
8 kilowatts.
Yeah. A few years ago, the average crept up to about 17 kilowatts.
Yeah.
And the broader industry has been, slowly preparing to handle 30 kilowatts in the near future.
But AI clusters blow right past that 30 kilowatt mark, don't they?
Oh, completely. They demand 50 kilowatts or more per rack, sometimes pushing toward 100 kilowatts.
Wow.
And that completely breaks the physical engineering of a legacy data center. I mean, EconWorks source provides some really fascinating visual data on this thermodynamic limit.
Right.
Traditional data centers use air cooling. They literally pump massive amounts of refrigerated air under the floor and just blow it across the hot metal surface to keep them from melting.
Right. Just giant AC units, basically.
Exactly. But there is a hard physical feasibility limit to air cooling. And it hits right around that 30 kilowatt mark.
Right, because beyond 30 kilowatts, the metal is generating so much heat that air, just as a gas, physically cannot absorb and carry the heat away fast enough.
No matter how hard you blow it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the fans would have to spin so violently they'd sound like jet engines.
Yeah.
And they'd probably consume more power than the actual computers.
Right.
So to run AI workloads at 50 kilowatts or more, you require liquid cooling. You literally have to pipe fluids directly to the chips to absorb the heat.
Which is fundamentally changing the architecture of the building. Like you're bringing heavy pipes, massive volumes of water, and entirely new plumbing into a room full of highly sensitive electronics.
Yeah, it's a huge shift. The floor weight capacities alone have to be drastically increased just to hold the weight of all that liquid.
Wow.
So you literally cannot put AI into legacy buildings without completely rebuilding them from the foundation up.
Right.
And it also comes down to power efficiency, which the industry measures using something called PUE.
PUE.
Yeah, power usage effectiveness.
Yeah.
A perfectly efficient facility where every single drop of power goes to computing and absolutely nothing goes to cooling would score a 1.0.
Okay.
Modern hyperscale AI facilities, they operate at a highly efficient 1.1 to 1.2.
Meaning for every watt of computing power, they only spend 0.1 or 0.2 watts on cooling it down.
Exactly. Now contrast that with the industry average for older legacy buildings. That sits around 1.5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they waste half a watt on cooling for every single watt of compute. And when your rack requires 50 kilowatts, wasting that much power isn't just insanely expensive. It frequently overloads the electrical capacity of the entire building.
Okay, so because AI demands this fundamentally different, physically upgraded, liquid-cooled environment, the real estate market has just completely fractured.
Oh, totally.
Like, AI-ready space is now a completely different product from traditional data center space.
It is. And that fracture has triggered this extreme, unprecedented shortage.
Yeah.
Let's look at the vacancy rates to really understand the market panic right now. In a healthy, functional data center market, you want a vacancy rate of about 5 to 8%.
Because you need a buffer.
Right. That buffer gives companies room to grow, they can move their operations around, negotiate new leases, all that.
But according to the source, by the second half of 2025, the global vacancy rate for AI-ready capacity has collapsed to roughly 1.4%.
It's basically gone.
And if you look at primary, highly desirable hubs, places like Northern Virginia, which really operates as the digital backbone of the internet,
Oh, yeah, massive hub.
vacancy there is effectively non-existent. It is less than 1%.
Less than 1%. And, the paradox here is staggering when you actually look at the construction data, because supply is actually growing incredibly fast.
Right.
The paper notes a 36% year-over-year growth in physical supply for 2025.
Wait, hold on, though. Basic economics says if supply is growing by a massive 36% in a single year, prices should be dropping, or, at least stabilizing.
Yeah, you'd think so.
But how on earth are prices doing what they're doing right now? Because EconWorks paper highlights that lease rates jumped from $120 to $196 per kilowatt per month between 2019 and 2025.
Yeah.
And some large deployments are seeing a 19% price hike in just a single 6-month period. I mean, that breaks the laws of supply and demand entirely.
Well, it looks broken until you look at net absorption,
Okay.
which is the rate at which available space is actually leased and consumed.
Yeah.
The demand for AI capacity is so ravenous that it is just eating every single new facility before the foundation is even fully poured.
Yep.
Yeah, a 36% increase in supply is massive. But when demand increases by 100% or more, that new supply just vanishes instantly.
So if you're a regulator, right, or an antitrust lawyer watching prices spike 19% in 6 months while vacancy sits near zero, your alarms are blaring.
Oh, absolutely.
That looks exactly like a broken market controlled by a greedy monopoly intentionally restricting supply to jack up the cost.
It is the most tempting conclusion to draw. But the EconWorks source argues that searching for a corporate villain here is looking through entirely the wrong lens.
Okay, let me reframe this for you, the listener. It is really easy to look at this market and imagine like a VIP nightclub where a tech giant bouncer is artificially keeping the line super long outside, right? Just to create hype and charge an outrageous cover fee at the door.
Right.
But that's not what is happening. It is a situation where the owner desperately wants to let everyone in, but the city's fire marshal literally will not allow the nightclub to expand the building to fit them.
Exactly. I mean, the capital's there. These companies desperately want to build.
Yeah.
The constraint is not a lack of money, and it's not a lack of competition. The source outlines 3 binding, purely physical bottlenecks that are choking this market. And crucially, none of them are controlled by tech companies.
Okay, let's follow the chain of these physical roadblocks, because even with billions of dollars ready to deploy, what is physically stopping the bulldozers?
Okay, so the first major roadblock is permitting and zoning.
Oh, sure.
Because data centers are massive industrial facilities. They require enormous amounts of land. They consume significant water resources for those cooling towers we talked about.
Right.
And the cooling chillers themselves are incredibly loud.
Right.
And on top of all that, they require new high-voltage power lines to be built directly through residential or commercial communities.
Oh, so local residents push back, like NIMBism, not in my backyard.
Exactly that. Local zoning boards have drastically slowed down new construction approvals as they try to just, manage the sheer physical impact these megastructures have on their towns.
Yeah.
And a tech giant cannot simply buy their way past a local town council that refuses to rezone a plot of land.
Right. But okay, let's say you get the zoning.
Okay.
The town council approves your mega facility. You build the walls, you run the plumbing for the liquid cooling, all of it. You still face the second binding constraint, grid interconnection.
Yeah. You can construct the most advanced AI facility on the planet, but it is just an empty brick warehouse until you actually plug it in.
Right.
Grid interconnection is the physical ability to connect these massive new electrical loads to the existing public power grid. And local utilities, they look at a request for like 100 megawatts of power, and they often say, We physically do not have enough power on this transmission line to plug you in.
Wow.
You will have to wait 4 years while we upgrade the regional grid.
Wait, why does it take 4 years? Because the utility companies want to sell power, right? You'd think they'd rush to connect a massive paying customer.
Well, it's because the regional power grids were engineered over decades for slow, very predictable residential and commercial growth.
Ah.
Right. They were never designed to suddenly drop the power equivalent of a small city onto a single suburban block in a matter of months.
Right, you can't just flip a switch for that.
Exactly. Upgrading that transmission infrastructure requires state-level approvals, environmental studies, and physical construction that spans hundreds of miles.
Man. Which brings us to the third bottleneck. And I think this one really highlights the friction between the digital world and the physical world. Let's say the utility company actually approves the upgrade. They still have to actually build it.
Yeah.
Enter the equipment supply chains constraint.
Yes, because to step down massive amounts of high-voltage power from a transmission grid so it can be used safely by a data center, you need heavy industrial transformers and specialized switchgear.
Right.
And these aren't just off-the-shelf items you order from a catalog.
No, they are essentially small buildings themselves, right?
They weigh hundreds of tons. They require highly specialized copper winding, massive amounts of mineral oil for cooling, and they are totally custom engineered for specific grid requirements.
Wow.
There are only a handful of factories on Earth capable of manufacturing them.
Sure.
And because the entire world is simultaneously trying to upgrade their electrical grids for AI right now, the lead times.
Yeah.
Like the time between signing a purchase order and actually having the transformer delivered on the back of a specialized flatbed truck, it has stretched to 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years just waiting for a part.
Yep.
So, synthesizing this, the core thesis of the EconWorks paper is that these sky-high lease rates are really a reflection of deeply constrained physical supply, not durable market power.
Exactly.
I mean, no tech giant controls the local zoning board, nobody holds monopoly over the regional power grid, and obviously no single firm commands the global supply chain for heavy industrial transformers.
Right. The expansion of AI capacity is limited by heavily regulated, purely physical infrastructure. And to prove that this isn't just some, abstract economic defense designed to keep regulators at bay, the source actually examines the actual on-the-ground behavior of the biggest players building and renting these spaces.
Yeah, let's look at that real-world proof. Because the paper examines SpaceX, specifically their massive Colossus AI data center campus.
Right.
And they are operating hundreds of megawatts of capacity there. And on paper, honestly, hundreds of megawatts concentrated in one facility sounds exactly like a monopoly forming.
It does sound intimidating.
Yeah.
But until you contextualize the true scale of the global market, right?
Yeah.
The total global market size for data center capacity is roughly 114 gigawatts.
Gigawatts.
And 1 gigawatt is 1,000 megawatts.
Wow.
So while SpaceX's Colossus campus is an incredible engineering feat and it represents massive local density, they really only control a tiny, tiny fraction of the global pie. The market is vastly larger than any single player's mega campus.
Okay, so let's look at the other side of the transaction then. The company's actually renting the space.
Sure.
The paper points to companies like Anthropic, which is a major player in building AI models, and they utilize a strategy called multi-homing. But explain how multi-homing actually works in practice. Because they aren't, physically packing up their servers and moving trucks, right?
No. Multi-homing relies on highly sophisticated software abstraction. It basically means Anthropic doesn't just sign a 10-year lease with one single infrastructure provider and, lock their entire business into that one building.
Oh.
Instead, they design their AI models and their computing workloads so they can be distributed across multiple different infrastructure providers simultaneously over the internet.
Oh, so if one provider suddenly jacks up their prices, Anthropic can just digitally shift their compute workloads to a completely different provider's data center halfway across the country.
Exactly. And the contracts reflect this highly competitive reality. I mean, the paper highlights that these massive capacity leases often feature 90-day termination clauses.
Wow.
If a provider was running a true monopoly, they would force companies into ironclad, multi-year lock-ins. They would never give a client a 90-day eject button.
Which brings us to the underlying financial incentives of the companies actually building these AI-ready spaces. I mean, the builders are essentially operating as capacity landlords.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it because they spend billions of dollars up front, they fight the zoning boards, they wait 3 years for the transformers, and they navigate the grid interconnection.
Oh, the headache.
Right. And once that facility finally flips a switch and goes live, their entire revenue model hinges on immediate maximum utilization. They have to lease out every single square inch of that space just to start paying down those massive capital costs.
Right, because a landlord with an empty building is losing money every single second. They don't generate revenue by keeping the doors locked to intentionally starve competitors of space.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Their financial incentive is to get as many paying tenants through the door as humanly possible.
Yeah.
The market is absolutely screaming for capacity. And the data proves these landlords are trying to provide it as fast as the physical realities of concrete and copper will actually allow.
Yeah.
They have incredibly powerful financial incentives against engaging in monopolistic foreclosure.
So what does this all mean for you? Let's bring this deep dive full circle. The next time you open a news app and you see a sensational headline about AI tech giants price gouging, or warnings that the industry is rapidly consolidating into a dangerous monopoly that's running out of room, remember the core takeaway from this EconWorks paper.
Yeah, this is a copper wire problem, not a competition problem.
It's a humbling reality check, honestly. The seemingly limitless digital ambitions of AI, these models that can write code, analyze molecular structures, and seemingly operate without any boundaries.
Yeah.
They're currently trapped inside the very real, agonizingly slow physical world of power lines, supply chain logistics, and thermodynamics.
It's so true. Which really leaves us with a rather profound question to consider as this technology continues to scale.
Right.
If our most advanced cutting-edge AI ambitions are currently bottlenecked by 3-year wait times for heavy industrial equipment and the slow, deliberate pace of local municipal zoning boards, what happens when this digital arms race completely outpaces our ability to pour concrete and lay high-voltage lines in our major cities?
Yeah.
Will we see the entire geographical map of global technological development just shift? Could we see the industry migrate away from traditional tech hubs like Northern Virginia and Silicon Valley entirely, moving exclusively to wherever massive, unregulated, off-grid power can be generated the absolute fastest?
Thanks for tuning into this episode of EconWorks. The goal of this series is to move beyond the surface-level descriptions of how markets work and start looking at the actual architecture of competition. We'll be back soon with another look at where the law and economics meet the market. For the full technical analysis and more from this series, visit us at econworks.com. If you found today's breakdown valuable, please subscribe and share the show. It helps us keep the analysis independent. From all of us here at EconWorks, thanks for listening.